For those online, hopefully you can hear me too. But if you'd like to take a seat or keep standing, your seat here, we feel free. This is free world. Don't have to. If you would like to come out to stand now. Cool. So, welcome to Product Tank Dublin. So, thanks so very much to Workhuman for putting on sponsorship for us. It's great to have Piers and Pizza. And for Piers, who's going to talk to us in a minute to hear a little bit about what they do. We've got Rosarie as well. She's going to take us through her talk track on IA and the joy of customers. So, we look forward to that. And afterwards, we're going to have a little bit of an interactive panel discussion where people are going to talk. And everyone is going to be really nice. And we're going to have conversations around product and design, interaction, and maybe some of the topics that guys want to come to. So, first thing is, if you would like to join us and be a speaker, please reach out to us. We're on Meetup, and please have reach out to myself or Ben or Christina. We'd love to have more speakers in the community, even if it's a lightning talk, even if it's something that you think no one will like, maybe they will. So please do reach out. We're really keen to get people back on the speaking track for Dublin and getting Dublin going again now that we're all out and about. World Product Day. So our next event is going to be July 19th. It's World Product Day. There's product tanks happening all around the clock, all over the world. And we're going to be coming live from Intercom. We're kind of getting the lining up the speakers. So there will be pizza, there will be beer, and there will be speakers to come. But that's going to be on July 19th, so please put it in your calendars. We'll put out the meetup, will be coming soon, and looking forward to getting that going too. So this is a little bit of interaction. So for those of you online, we need you to take out your phones. Everyone here as well, take out your phones, get your QR code, take a picture of the QR code, go to the website, or just go to slido.com and put in that number if the camera doesn't work for you. Hope the cameras do work for everyone. I'm going to keep talking so everyone gets a chance online to take out their phones, take a picture, get going, and get your. This is to vote and to talk and to engage and to raise some questions so we can have both digital and in-person conversation going. So, you're all being tested. Have you done your homework? Have you been able to open the QR code? Tell me, how have you been feeling? What's today been? Are you buzzed? Are you not so good? Are you delighted to be out of the office? Like to be in town at home. What are you feeling right now? Give us some good, busy, yay, grand, great. Busy, great, good, lovely time. Glad it's not raining. Great, grand, excited. Super. So we're all in there. Next one. Are there any topics that you would like to see covered at a future time? So any topics that you can think of, like let's go in there, it's going to collect later, we'll have we're going to be kind of brainstorming. But the community, this is crowdsourcing. So give me some ideas or the topics that you can think of. If you can't think of that off your head, that's okay too. You can always think of something. Product engineering partnership, love it. VR, user interviews, PM as a career, product management, section of data analytics, product. My personal. How to grow as a product manager, interesting one. Lean product lifecycle. Excellent. PM as a career. Love it. That's great. I'm going to give it another couple of seconds just for people to get the last few things. A colleague of ours said today, what is it you're on to? Pause 10 seconds. 10 seconds seems like a long time. You can say it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much, everyone, for that. And so, without further ado, I want to welcome Pierce to the stage, who's our part of our sponsor, Workhuman. I'm going to give a little overview of what they do, and then we'll take it there. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Welcome, David. Thanks, everyone, for coming. This is huge. Honor to make it up and showcase Workhuman, what we do, and shine that light towards our company in such a great company because it's a fantastic community and pleasure to speak. And so my name's Pierce Fitzpatrick. Hopefully you can see some of the slides online, but just tonight I want to tell you a little bit about Workhuman, the products and mission. And before that, I just want to read myself. So not far, we're far away or anything like that. I live in Dublin with wife, 2 kids, and my safe kind of dog Poppy here. And for my sins, I am a former software developer, full stack, where I did on the development side of house that matters. So I did that for around 10 years, and it's all life. I went towards the product side of the house, where I haven't looked back then, which is sooner to be honest. And so I look for designers and work with technical people, technical. So it's just a couple of my interests outside of work. A bit boring, but for me, they're my escapism. And so I like doing a bit of DIY, get away, from computer until I finally come with a hammer, and then I run back to the computer. And I like electric cars, and not the software end now, they're terrible, but electric cars and green energy. So efficient systems, that's my jam. I love it, and I love all these products. So although I haven't used one of these before, huge fan of listening to things and reaching out to speakers. And for those of you who know Marty Kagan, I watched his latest presentation in Oslo a while back. I contacted him and said, I'm going to do one of these intros in a while. Didn't think he'd get back to me. I said, a little nervous. Didn't think he'd get back to me. Go back to me. I think you'll be great, Pierce. Not to worry. And that's like Jackson, so I really appreciated that. So just to let you know and tell you a little bit about Workhuman. So we're the world's fastest growing social recognition and continuous performance management platform. We have a clear and unwavering mission to make work more human. And essentially what that means is we help companies to retain and harness the best asset, which is people that work for them. What that does in return for companies is helps them increase the performance of their employees, helps them increase the engagement of their employees, and also helps them retain that very elements. And so our main mission is to make work more human environment, that to create employee experiences that help people grow, help people enjoy their work more. We've been doing this for 52 years. Currently, we have over 400 customers, ranging from 1,000 employees to hundreds of thousands. So these are widespread, wide platforms that provide large businesses. And it's typically, as most of the software are, it's in 180 countries. Served up in 34 languages. We have 7 million people there. So in the maths, 7.3 million people. And obviously that was gradual over the last 2 years, but that's millions of data points, lots of data to reflect on it and see work and respond to our software. So our platform, Workhuman Cloud. So these suite of software, this is some of the main softwares that we help to create a human workplace. So the idea about creating a human workplace is at a community level or at a culture level. We want to get people following these 3 pillars, which is thank, talk, celebrate. Thank is getting people to actually acknowledge the great work that's being done by their colleagues and teams on inter-team projects. And the second one is talk, getting people to talk more, because when you start talking more, you can grow as an individual in the workplace. And it helps you kind of move on from any work that you might be in and helps you grow as a person, an individual in an organization. The last one is celebrate, which is my favorite. I went through now in a second, but it's about seeing beyond the employee, kind of seeing the kind of work friendships develop by kind of finding out common interests that people have, and also seeing behind the number and seeing the human behind it. So the first pillar, as I was talking about, is social recognition. So this is our main software, which is about it's a peer-to-peer recognition system that provides for clients. It allows people to go in, give each other rewards at an individual to individual level, and also to groups, teams, of course, traditional top-down.
But this is one place which it is it's a place where gratitude exists. It's a place where people go and see the great work that's being done around them that's in line with the values of the company. It also helps people at a low level to private work with messages that encourage each other about certain things that they don't, so all the great work behind the scenes also showcase the great work that's done. And the next pillar is conversations. And that's about getting people to talk at a wide company level. What this does is it's an agile performance management done to allows users to get feedback from all sources. So it's not just a traditional end of year management. It helps you set up a cadence with people around you to get feedback from people. It helps you request feedback, also lets you get unsolicited feedback. So this presentation from colleagues here, I'm not getting feedback off them. It's going to help me grow as a vendor, hope you get better at this. But what it does is it allows you to, again, get that cadence of talk, get that cadence of giving and receiving feedback. It really helps people see, shine a mirror on themselves and get it in a private way to choose to share with their manager or not. But from a manager point of view, where it really helps is when they are having their one-on-ones, they can talk about what are your aims this year, what are your goals, what are you doing, what are you talking to help kind of move that along. They can see also that alongside all the good attitudes that they've received, self-recognition. But that put together is a really powerful tool for seeing what the individual's impact is on the business. And it really does change the game when you start talking to more people, not just your manager, start talking to your colleagues and people that are in big groups. And the third pillar, and it's probably one of my favorites, is celebration modules. So life events, service milestones, and celebrations. These are great tools that kind of want to showcase the person beyond the employee number and beyond any projects work to receive gratitude for. So life events is when you're getting when you've had a significant life event that comes like colleagues. And so it could be your baby, your marriage, not a new marriage, your marriage. It could be a wide spectrum of significant life events that happen. And unlike the traditional Hallmark gift card that's passed around the office and someone has a tiny bit of space, we've received this wall of appreciation and a wall of kind of congratulations from your colleagues. People have videos, media, they put memes, they put long-winded messages, but you literally have pages and pages of this kind of outpouring of love from your friends and work. And I received one at the start of COVID when we were all down when my son was born. And as I had nearly brought tears, it's an understatement. It was really overwhelming. The second one is service milestones. So unlike the traditional being here for 5 years, here is a glass pack, put it on your desk and nothing happens. What this tool does is pure camaraderie in advance. So coming up to one of your 3, 5, 15, 20 years anniversary, whatever it may be, it reaches out to all of your servants and asks you stories about you and asks you to congratulate in advance. And what you end up receiving is again videos of loads of stories coming through all the people you impact. Because I know everyone sitting here is thinking about on their companies, but you remember the people that you work with. You don't remember the projects you work on. They fade. And so this kind of thing is it's those milestones in your career. And the last one is also really useful within companies, especially the large scale companies. It's community celebrations. So community celebrations is a way to reflect the communities that exist in organizations. So we all know that there's parent groups, there's environmental groups, there's football clubs, there's NFL, there's football leagues, there's so many different communities, export players, all that within all these little communities within the organization. But we often stagnant at the need to support them and kind of advertise them within an organization. What community celebrations does is, say you're having a charity event with the lunchtime joggers club, it celebrates the fact that they've done a 5K for charity or something like that, and it exposes it to a wider audience. So one, you're getting more to join your employee resource group, but you're also getting like-minded people. So even in this first environment, you only see each other once every 2 weeks in a COVID world, or once when you have people come together for an So it really builds bonds that go beyond just your department and your Zoom calendar. Okay, just so like I was saying, I work on the human engagement team, Workhuman, and we're a data informed team, 22 years, billions of data points, a lot to kind of digest there. And we're informed, we're not led by. This is some of my colleagues from Dublin, some of my colleagues from Boston, and we work to get increase engagement in our products. So it's not just increase at an individual level. It doesn't work at an individual level. It won't get the takes. If you get the culture of thanking each other in place in an organization, it really is actually lifts this. So it's really powerful stuff once it gets going. But it can be a lot it can be a little milestone for someone to try and say first, try and reach out to someone and say, I want to be a bit vulnerable here, and you give me some feedback. So letting people into these kind of habits, it's a great achievement that happens, and it's a good thing. So the visibility of that informs the use of it causes these circles. So, like I was saying, we're data informed, not data driven. And so 22 years, lots of people in Workhuman are there for nearly all of that. And so we use past experience and intuition to ensure that we're doing the right thing. And also, we're not being data informed. And we use risk assessment of any of our hypotheses and our ideas that are put from various sources. We make sure that they do cover. And if we do address any of the risks to the desirability, disability, usability. But also, what we do is we make sure that all the people in the organization have access to the MP artifacts. So everyone can get access to data. There's lots of tools, but it kind of takes a lot of management teams and a lot of people to procure all of the customer feedback and so people, the developers, designers, and stakeholders, they all understand the field of pain at small and design levels and at small end user levels. So make sure to combine those things in our things. We're very outcome driven, and I'll just cite some of the examples here. And this is more at a company that some of the companies that we have worked with and then just an example here for you guys to see. But Cisco had over the space of 5 years, they had 600 awards a day, resulting in 1.2 billion awards platform. That may not seem a lot compared to size, but if you think about it, that shows appreciation for that person's piece of work or team's piece of work. It actually encourages the next person to actually speak in that kind of manner as well and give an award to that thing. So it actually gets everyone lifting each other's spirits about the work that they do. It really can show the value, because we're all very guilty of just thinking we do a job. We all do something for our purpose, so it's really important for someone to say that back to you. So although this is at a company level, we make sure to get as well. So one of the best things is conversation helps people grow. This statistic here about people who receive awards, achievements less likely to be. This is the main point of our software, is that it changes the culture, people staying there, but it also gets people growing in an organization. So they go from one position to the next, they enjoy the work, they feel seen. And so, as I was saying, we have an incredible mission to help humans enjoy work more. Everyone can find the line to that. Our product team is around 50 strong on every road. When I joined 3.5 years ago, it was only 350 people at home. We just went over 10 aspirations for more. Went onto the website last night, and there was 95 roles open. So not just software development, not just engineering, not just design, product, but also operation, procurement, and the e-commerce elements of the store. So, please have a look. Put up some here in relation to self-support. Lots of us here from Workhuman. Have a conversation with us and learn a bit more about it. Really looking forward to all the rest of the speakers, and thanks for listening to me.
And we're just going to do a little bit of work on moving the camera. And we have our next speaker. Yeah, ready for action. We're going to have some signal. Hold on. So we have Rosarie going to take us through her talk on IA and the joy it brings to your customers. No.
Thank you for having me. My name is Rosarie, and I am a principal product designer in Zendesk, where I get the pleasure of working with John every day. So I usually do this talk with my friend and colleague Martha, who is a content designer, but she is on vacation this week, so I'm here solo. So I'll do my best to represent us. But if you have not got the opportunity to learn about content design or work with a content designer, I definitely recommend it. And if you're hiring designers, consider content design. And maybe hopefully in the future, ProductTank will have a talk dedicated to product design. So today, I am going to talk about information architecture, and we're going to meet a famous information architect. And by the end of the session, hopefully, you will know about 6 basic steps towards building a solid information architecture. So let's go. So first things first, what is information architecture? It is the art of arranging parts into something that makes sense, into something that is understandable. So many people equate information architecture with navigation, but information architecture is bigger than navigation. It includes the context, labeling, and the structure of your content. So here is an example of good information architecture. It's a well-organized kitchen. So we all know these kitchen hacks and Pinterest, and who doesn't have a Pinterest board of their dream kitchen? But in fact, these are information architecture improvements. So organizing things, so things that you need are in hand, that are there, easy to find, easy to retrieve, and easy to put away. No need to rummage around in drawers, and things that you need are always handy. And that is what information architecture is for your product, for your site, for your app. So the funny thing about information architecture is that good information architecture is unnoticed. And when everything is where it should be, and then your customers can find the content and the tasks that they need to do and get the job done quickly, it sometimes goes unrecognized. So don't be sad if you don't hear your customers say, oh, your information architecture is fire, because they'll say it in other ways, and we'll talk about that a little. So to talk about information architecture, I am going to borrow some methods from a famous information architect, and that is Marie Kondo. So Marie Kondo is a Japanese organizing consultant. Several books. One of them is called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And she also has a Netflix series where she goes into people's homes and she transforms their homes into a space where they want to live. So she is going to help us along today as we talk around information. So in the KonMari method, there are 6 steps. And the first step is around committing to tidying up. So recognizing that the KonMari method is not a quick fix for a messy room or a thing you do once in a while, that it's actually a chance to reset, to think about your ideal lifestyle and the way you want to live and commit to that. So that is the first step in per method. But how do we translate that to product lingo? So to commit to tidying up, we need to first recognize that there is a problem with our information architecture. So there's a couple of different ways to spot it, but sometimes it's not easy to spot these issues. It's not like a wardrobe bursting at the seams where you know there's a problem, but there are some indicators that signal that there may be an information architecture problem. So you can look at usage. If there is low usage on things that you feel should be used more, you can look at customer feedback. If customers are asking you for things you already have in your product or app, well, it's simply a case they can't find them. Internal feedback is also a great tool to see what are the things that our customer service teams are hearing that we do that people can't find them, or that people always say, oh, I forget that we can do that, or I always forget how to do, or where that setting is. So as well as looking at usage and customer feedback, we also recommend, just like Marie recommends, taking all your clothes out of the closet and putting them all in a pile in the room. We recommend that you separate your product structure, the UI, with your content. And you can do that by doing a content audit, which is a spreadsheet of all your content on each page and the purpose of it. You can do a type map, which explains the hierarchy of structure of how the content works together, and mind maps of how the content fits together and where they live. So separating the two allows you to really see what the problem is. Okay, so as we continue with this first step, we have identified that there is an issue, and now you need to set your intention. What is your end goal? And this is a template by Marie Kondo, who's an information architect and has a couple of great books that I recommend. And this template just allows you to set your intention, what you want to achieve with this information architect improvements, and how you know if it's improved. What are the signals? So now that we've set our intention, it is time to move on to the next step. So Marie recommends that you take some time to think about the ideal life that you want to live, the house that you kind of want to live in, and the lifestyle you want. So when you imagine your ideal lifestyle, you're clarifying what you want to tidy, envisioning your best life, and this is a turning point. So in design lingo or product lingo, this is about understanding what your customer wants. And how we do that is looking at and understanding a user's mental model. So a mental model represents a person's thought process, how they see a particular task. It is based on incomplete facts, past experience, other products, and this is the way a user sees the world. So then a conceptual model is the model that we put on a user interface. And we need to make sure that our mental model and our conceptual model are aligned for different users. So you can understand your user's mental model by doing discovery research. And just as an example of different mental models, and as I said, they can be not based on fact. So some of your things your customer believes may not be actually true, but these are the things that they believe. This is an example of somebody who has only ever had experience reading using a tablet. So here they are, trying to swipe and pinch on a magazine their mental model of reading. That's what you do. They've only ever used a tablet. Are they wrong? Are they right? They're not really. So it's interesting the way mental models work. Another example is somebody who's never used a tablet and sees it in the kitchen, nice, clean, smooth surface, and says, "Hey, that looks like a nice chopping board," and uses it as. So you can see there, mental models are based on your past experience and what you believe. So through summary research, you can understand your user's model, and then you can map them in the mental model diagram, as you see here. This is an example from Indy Young, who is a information architect and wrote the book on it. And this is an example she gives in a blog of a mental model of someone who works with Google Analytics. And it illustrates the person's thought process, their goals, and so on. Of how they see and use the yeah. So now that we understand our users a little bit more and what they need, it's the next step, and this is the tricky step. It's about discarding things. So the hardest part of tidying up is accepting that there's things in your house that no longer serves you. You can try to stuff things in drawers and say, I might use that someday, but your house will truly never be tidy because you still have that stuff that you don't use. So we can translate this to product and design thinking where very easily. So is it that, we have things that we've worked on, maybe, oh, that was my first project, or first redesign project, or I remember the customer who asked for that, or someone might use it. So we get somewhat attached to things on our site or in our app, and we forget that, hey, our users have changed. They've moved on. They need different things now. They do different things. The world has moved on, and maybe it's time to thank that thing and say goodbye to it. So to help figure out what you need to discard, here's a little formula. So you map out what's in your wardrobe, or in this case, it could be a work glove. And then on top of that, you look at the usage. So are you using that dress or trousers, or are people using that piece of content or that top? And then you can see very easily the places and things that are maybe underutilized. As well as that, there may be other problems. So problems such as having too much information or too little information of such a thing. Things that are hard to find. Things that are hard to recognize. That you don't know that is the thing that does the thing that you actually want because it has an obscure name. And then things that you're like, oh, I don't know why they're there, but let's just keep them just in case because I'm new, I'm only the product manager for a year and someone else worked on that. And also there are those sentimental items that we attach to our products that we feel are important, but maybe our customers don't, and that we need to decide using feedback and usage apps whether we want to keep them in our app or not. So here is an example of what happens when you remove the unnecessary. So this is a burger restaurant in Dublin, and a very simple menu, and you have not many options, but you have everything you need to have a nice meal if you want to go there. So it means there's less waste, but it also means your customers can choose easily and see what you have. So it's just a nice example from the outside world. Okay, so we're moving on to step 4 now that we've decided what we want to keep and is useful to our customers and what we need to discard.
It's being okay. He's on for that.
You can take a breather there. 3 seconds. Okay, so step number 4 of the KAMARI method is to tidy by category, and this applies to product world as well. So categories are important in Mari's method. She tidies in categories rather than location. And she does this so we don't fall into similar traps. And similar items are stored in multiple locations. So if you tidy by location, you're often repeating the process. So so there's no right or wrong about categories. There's lots of different ways you can categorize your content. It depends on the context in which you work in, your customers, and there's lots of ways to do it. And here is where you experiment and try different ones to see which one is the right tool for you. So in the product world, this act of tidying by category is going to formulate your taxonomy and or classification. So this is examples of a taxonomy and it's for rat names, and you can see this poster which you can buy on PopChart. You can categorize your rat names either by letter or number or by animal. Shout out to all dogs, or by shadiness. So there's so many different ways you can categorize things, and this poster perfectly illustrates that. So there is a lot of iteration in this and seeing what's the best classification to suit your customer. And here also is an example from one of our colleagues in Melbourne. This is Bookshop. So instead of your standard bookshop library labels, they've gone with something different to inject a little bit of joy or delight and to speak to their customers. And remember, you can do that with your information architecture as well. It doesn't have to be dry and no personality, that it is an opportunity for delight and joy. So once we have our classification, we have a glossary of terms that we use, that our customers use and understand, and maybe a glossary of terms that we don't use. And it's just, we don't use them because of this, that, and the other. And that's really helpful for the internal project team going forward, that you know what words you're using and everybody knows the meaning of those words in project meetings. But it's also important for your customers. So those taxonomies, really important to agree on internally, but also with your customers. So now that we have that, the 5th step is about following the right order. So in Marie Kondo's world, she specifies an order, a way of tidying things. You start with clothes and then books and magazines and so on. So as a designer, we must find the order that works for our users, and there's no one size fits all. And so we need to play with structure and iterate on the categories and the order of those categories, the hierarchy and the labeling, and to see what is the strongest information sent. So information sent is a concept in information architecture. Just like people forage for information, animals forage for food by sniffing what they want, and this is how people go through this site as well. They follow the scent of information. People arrive at your site, they scan the words, they look for the words they think will take them to their task. And if the scent is weak, or if they don't understand the scent, then there is a problem. So it's our job to, with these classifications and a structure, to create this sense of information that is strong and resonates with our customers. So I mentioned that words carry a lot of meaning and they're very important, and sometimes they are overlooked. And creating lists of vocabulary that do and don't use is super important part of your step for your customers and for the team. I also recommend at this stage that you conduct a workshop with your team to check the information sent. So you map out your workflow, and then you think, well, how do I get here? And what do I do now? And where do I go next? And is it actually clear? And if you have new people on your team, it's a great exercise to do it then, because you get the benefit of fresh eyes. So now we're on to our last step. And it is probably Marie Kondo's one of her famous phrases, is like, does it spark joy? And I know in product design, we talk a lot about delight and delightful design. And sometimes I'm like, what does that really mean if someone's trying to do a tax return or submit a ticket in Zendesk? Is joy what they're looking for? So it's not always joy. People are looking for something. It's that sense of accomplishment. It's done, and I did it well, and I don't have to worry about it. Sometimes in enterprise products, that is what joy is. The job is done, it's done well, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And that is joy. So once we identify what joy is to our users, and it could be as simply as feeling confident about the job well done. We need to ensure that our categorization and our structure that we have iterated on sparks that feeling of joy, whatever. So there's a couple of different ways that you can test your information architecture. The first one is called card sorting, where you're asked your customers to arrange the content into groups. There's two types, open and closed. So for open card sorting, your research participant is asked to give those groups a label, and then in closed, you give the label, and then you ask your participants to put the content in whatever group they see. So unlike user testing, we need about 20, 30 participants, but there are online tools where you can do this to get valid feedback. So then you can see if the structure, the labeling of your content works or not. And on these online tools, actually, a lot of them give you the output in these graphs, so you can really see which ones work and which ones don't. So optimal source is one of the tools that you can use. True testing is another way you can test your content, especially if it's hierarchical. You lay out your navigation or your hierarchy of content, and then you ask people, where would you find your agent's dashboard, or where would you find creating a ticket? And people go up and down the tree and see if they could find that in the navigation. And if they find it, then you know that it works. If it doesn't, it's either not discoverable enough, or the label is not working. So these are all ways that you can test. So findability, discoverability, and readability. There's a couple of online tools that you can use to test readability. There's a thing called Prize Scores, which examines your content and will tell you that it should be accessible and readable for people with an education level of 8th grade. And then the close test is in a paragraph of content, you take out every 6th word, and then you show that to some customers with the missing words and see if they still get the gist of the content. And if they do, then you know your content is being true. So as well as findability, discoverability, the readability of your content, and it is really important as well. So we have our taxonomy, we have tested it, and we have figured out what joy means for our customers. And I said at the start about people probably won't say, oh, your information architecture is really nice, kudos on that. But they will say in user tests or in feedback that, oh yeah, I got that done, or I got this, or oh yeah, they get me, that's how I say things as well, or that was easy, or I'm done, or that's out of my hair. They will say things like this that that comment on how easy it was to use, the feeling of confidence and competence they had when using your products. And that's when you know you have sparked joy. So hopefully using these 6 steps with the help of Marie Kondo's method, you can spark joy for your customers by organizing your content around their needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosarie. So we're going to have a little panel. So we have Carla, I'm so sorry. Carla is from Workhuman, who is also a designer. And we're going to, if everyone has any questions that were kind of prompted me or listening to the conversation today, we just use that Slido. We all looked at the start. I've got one prepared earlier. There's the QR code. This QR code, if you haven't got it on your phone, just hit it and you can start raising any questions. So we're going to go with the first one. This for you, Rosarie, amazing talk, Rosarie. Just so you know, if you needed to start working on an IA for your product, do you have any tips on where to start first? It's broad.
I would identify and illustrate where the problem is. So that's step 1 or 2, where you do a content audit, where you map all the content onto a spreadsheet, or you draw a sitemap, or do a cognitive walkthrough and overlay that with your usage stats and what it would be your predictive usage stats as well, and highlight to people where you think is a problem. Going through past user interviews is a great way of seeing it as well. Even if the user interview isn't about that topic, there might be snippets of things around content and terminology that you can use to strengthen your case that there is a problem.
It's not like where you are just kind of finding the area small area of work on asking people. It's not like any particular start. Try and find the space to work on.
It could be even as small as, a drop-down menu that you have that has a shed load of options, and they're all listed, and you're like, okay, there are interaction patterns that can help make this drop-down menu easier to navigate. But actually, do we need this content as well? And you could start there. Look at the options people choose or don't choose, or the funnel, are people leaving at that stage? So it can be as narrow or as broad as you like, really. As long as there's a content there, you can analyze it.
Experience
for me, the first thing is to do, as you said yourself, a complete audit. What is there, because sometimes there is things that are overlapping. Like that's the first thing that you can get rid of.
Yeah. Next one, okay. How does this process change or adapt during IAs to new users versus previous experts? Doesn't use enough.
Yeah. This is something that we this is a challenge John and myself have with products we work on together. And I would say you need to optimize for new users, because those repeat users or those established users were at one point new users as well, and they just learned your lingo rather than naturally understanding it. So I would err on the side of thinking about new users and what are those first impressions. also with established users or repeat users, you will learn their workarounds. And that will point to a problem in eyes, like, oh, I bookmarked this because I can never find it, or I do this little trick in filters because I know I'll find it there. Or they'll call it something else. They'll be like, oh, I call it this, but I know in your system you call it that, and there's like a you and them, and you're like, okay, we don't want that. So that's how I'd approach it. That helps.
And it is an interesting balance. You have like users who your system, the experts, the power users. You have all these early adopters or new adopters you want to bring in. But you don't have to dumb it down. Do you? Like, it doesn't mean just because they're users, it doesn't have to be. Your point is like, there's language you can use that's not necessarily at the lowest level. It doesn't mean that your power user is going to be more educated than your novice. Yeah. It's an interesting one we have because we have two different types of users in our system. Like we've got high power users expertise, and then we have new users in a little bit kind of novice. The two is quite powerful. It's analytics. So if you're not familiar with the analytics world, you can get overfaced. So trying to tread that balance, we have that kind of balance. Those very analytical users maybe are coming into this time, but language can matter.
An example of that is it's an analytics tool. So one of the options is count and decount. And if you did your maths and if you're all over that, you know what decount is. And the debate is, should we continue to say decount or should we just say count and unique count? Everybody understands it then. Yeah. Our power users still know they're getting their decount. But then it's more accessible for people who are new to analytics. So that's just a little example there when you're working in analytics.
Here's one for maybe with you was, what advice would you give to PMs to work better with design?
Well, I think in my experience, the product worked really well within design, but I actually went to a conference recently and the product manager stood up and he said, the first thing that I always do when I go into a company is I do a little research and I make empathy maps. I don't make empathy maps for my clients, I make empathy maps for people that work with. Because then it's really easy to know who you're talking to, how to work with them, and just to understand them. And like, I'm not saying like go and show it to them or tell them, hey, look what I'm doing. But do it and just to understand how to work with your designers and how to work with people.
I think it's more like a mindset of a partnership, because there is so much overlap between the roles now, and that mindset of partnership when it comes to decision making and just actually talking about when you start working with the first. How will we work together? And what are the things that you need? Or like, I'm a note taker, I'm an organized. Busy, not so much, but between us, things get done. So having that conversation of like, this is how I work, and this is how you work, and seeing it as a partnership, and kind of working on it. I think that's the main. That it's the mindset. It's no like, well, I'm the decision maker and this, that, and the other. That it's just like the common goal is we want to make a really good product and have a massive impact on customers. And it's just keeping that.
I think it's key to get anything right is alignment with both technical people and design. And one thing that people often do when they're working with people is they talk when they have projects. They don't talk when they don't have projects. So I actually use RTO conversations to make sure that I meet with designers that are in my team and outside my team on a regular basis, just to kind of list what they have, or I consume stuff that they put in a public space. And sometimes we're talking about apps that are in cars, sometimes we're talking about movies, sometimes we're talking about everything. But if you have that strong relationship, you're in tune with the person and you can get down to the nitty-gritty very quickly. And also if you're talking about a technical person or someone that mightn't have the full persona of the user flow that you're describing, and if you make that something that's available in advance of meetings, new starters and other people that wouldn't have any idea about the persona that you're trying to put the hat on for in that situation, it can really help to just have that publicly available for
Yeah. Okay. The one thing that I would also have in my experience is, and this would go with a lot of the roles, is just about trust, like the trust between each other. So like as a PM, I trust my designer to know what their skills are, lent them to be able to understand it. And you know, you can have a challenging conversation, but the trust is there from the start. And similarly then with engineering partners, you trust that they have your back and understanding the load, performance, is the right thing to do, etc. Next one we have, unless there's any feedback from you mentioned content designer. You mentioned content designer at the start. What is their role versus a designer? And I have another one that's kind of in the same area that says, what area does content design work? Is it documentation?
So in Zendesk, we have a content designer in our team, and so it's 3 product designers and 1 content designer. Martha takes the lead on when we talk about organizing the content and labeling the content. And like that example there of count, decount, or unique count. So it goes from the information architecture and the taxonomy, the words that we use and don't use, to the micro copy in the UI. So all the labels and the little tags help, and the onboarding. So that is her role. Sometimes she does offer design, interaction design patterns, and oftentimes they're much better than what I had in mind, which is great. So it's really the overlap of one person coming in thinking primarily about the content and how people view the content, and the other person coming in thinking about, okay, the task the person wants to get done is this, how can we design this flow for the most efficiency, whatever. And between us, then we come with a good solution. So sometimes in Zendesk, we have other writers who work in documentation. But I know Martha consults with the documentation team a lot when she is working on labeling, especially because they're in the know. They know when our customers understand help articles, or when they comment and say, I don't know what you mean here. So they're slightly different, the documentation writers and designers in Zendesk.
Does anyone else have any experience with content design? In our team, you definitely see them as like a partner in the team. So they will come into discovery and early discovery, and we're looking at patterns, design and come up with a prototype, and we'll talk about how the interaction works and what labeling and content copy that maybe we're using within it. And Martha works as part of the team, and really, you know, we're working on content as we're there and then. It's not like she sent a whole shed load of spreadsheets and we say, right, have that done in the morning. It's kind of on the job. Next one. IA and heuristic analysis are essential for a good user experience. So that right. How do you overcome that's what the client wants conflicts with your finding?
So that's all about balance. So the question was how information architecture and heuristic analysis goes against what we want to do versus what the client wants.
Yeah, so how are you essential to good user experience, and how do you overcome that's what the client wants?
Yeah, so that is all about balance. And we have something in my role, we have kind of the work we're doing at the moment, which is in scope. We've arranged that with our project managers, our product managers, and we also have our vision, and our vision is what we want to do for the future. And what we want to do for the future is constant iteration, and we're always working on that. And then sometimes what the client wants isn't necessarily right. Sometimes the client doesn't know what they want. Sometimes we kind of have to engage them in a certain way because we kind of know from experience what they're saying and what they could possibly want. So I guess if we're going back to information architecture and all of that, I guess the best way to overcome that is to, from your experience, show them the best ways and give them what you have in previous validations and just show them, and hopefully that aligns with business goals. So you can see the business goals and the user goals sort of all align, and I kind of hope that answered the question.
Yeah. And I think you can even post the event, right? To your point, you can actually validate it with the data. Say you can show how particular copy is helping people navigate through a particular flow in a better way.
Yeah. And sometimes you need really, really particular copy, and that's kind of for them. Like I know sometimes, we can have a certain copy in the UI, and they can kind of figure that something they want, and that's their decision. That's not something that we have to put into our products. That's something we can also kind of fight that balance as well. Yeah.
Like one example that I think really fascinating. It was a very easy fix in the end, but we had a flow where we were testing a beta product alongside the normal product, and we used a button that said try beta, and people just got afraid when they saw the button try beta. I think they thought they were signing up to a cult or something. But like we just saw in the data, we could see it drop off. People were getting to that link and then going, oh no, not for me. And so we changed it to use legacy, what's it called? Use classic and use beta. We just changed the word to use. And now I can see straight away, it's only live 5 days, and we can see the data. We're losing no one through the fact. So you can just see the benefit of that through the validation of the data. And it's been quite powerful.
Quite often that people get stuck in loggerheads with people kind or people within their colleague, and they go, it should be this or it should be this. And tools like Optimize that allow you to send people down A/B tests and prove it out. Yeah. So the statistics will answer that for the client. And it only takes a small team of users, 30 people, 50 people going through this flow for you to then correct it. And most people will take that sacrifice to get a better user experience, and the data will cut through any kind of the client is always right, or I'm here the longest in this company, or whatever it is, statistics will help you.
Yeah, how do you use it? I'll move on. Next one. Workhuman and Zendesk are used by multiple personas within a company. How do you look at user research or IA situation? The Workhuman and Zendesk are used by multiple personas within a company. How do you look at user research or IA in such situation?
So in Zendesk, we have a centralized research team, as well as each product team can put up their own research. So the centralized research team works on really understanding our archetypes and our personas better, and dealing with personas or customers that use many of our different products. And then at a team level, we would do research maybe on a feature level, whereas one feature within one product this my persona may use, but it's not the overarching piece. That's what the centralized research team provides.
Yeah, from my experience, we have a product research team, but since I joined, I've only been on it was like one really large project, and in my experience on that project, we have a number of personas, but these personas are really kind of linked to the user type and eligibility. So it's like Timmy or Nora know-it-all and Nancy new, so it's a different type of users, and that came from executive and trickle down. And so I try to use that in my flows and when I'm just.
I think we have time for 2 more. Yeah. Thank you for a great talk. Have you ever applied this approach to internal documentation? With so many more people working with it, it would be beneficial. Sorry, I'm going to look at you and say yes. Thank you for a great talk. Have you ever applied this approach, I suppose, IA to internal documentation? So many people working on other people.
I think the content designers and our documentation do work quite closely together. But yeah, I don't know if our documentation designers are doing this. In a past job, I have worked with documentation we had so many duplicate help articles. Like I think there was like 50 odd that just overlapped, or there was like 3 or 4 that dealt with the same issue. So it was between myself and Ryan, the documentation writer, we did a spreadsheet, identified all the overlaps, and just trying to get rid of them because it was messing up SEO, and obviously it was hard to find the content kind of one place rather than scattered in many places. So yeah, I definitely encourage writers to do that, or even like, you know, API docs or things like that. Definitely benefit from information architecture.
Yeah. From the index of the
Yeah.
references. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. Let's go drop this to your last. When you're updating the IA, do you have any advice for managing the change with existing users? The things that are things that they're familiar with or just appear.
I was thinking back to read the question because I was always thinking of myself, and I think a big change in yourself when you're used to use WhatsApp and
Yeah.
I wonder like how many do you use guides? Is that a thing? Like is that instructive or is that really helpful? So I was really interested in what you have to say, but my experience it's a little guide.
Yeah, we experience a lot of this, and some of our customers, especially, is that they use the tool every day, and change is hard for them. Yeah, so what we try to do is to announce the change early, either with our documentation team or maybe in product using Pendo or in product managers. And then when there is a change, there is some onboarding pattern that we use, like toolkits or something like that, to explain it. And usually along with it, that there is an opportunity for people to give us feedback. So they can tell us what they think. But letting people know early and pointing out the change helps. Not doing it like end of quarter or like on a crunch time for your customers when you know that they're going to be stressed. So but that goes for any changes. Which yeah, you'll find maybe the initial feedback is like, oh, I don't like this, and it's the same really in user testing. Sometimes when we're testing something brand new, it's like, well, this is different, and then when you ask them to whatever the task is and they do it, they're like, oh, yeah, that was good. So that initial reaction to change is very human, and you just need to figure out is it doesn't work for them anymore, they don't understand it, or is it just the change itself?
So like some of the recent changes that we did, we have a huge forum that I'm quite active in, taking all the heat and the praise. But like what we've done is we linked out to knowledge articles from content. So if we have tooltips, we'll link out to an article. And I was just looking at the data the other day on the clicks. You can see there's like, you know, of the 1,000 people that clicked through a flow and looked at tooltips, only 100 went to the article. So like really, they're the 100 people that you want to target, because they were like very kind of not angry, but maybe passionately not liking what you just changed. And then they get to engage with us then on the community, and we can actually look at it. Also, not being afraid to pivot and to move back. It is such a big change that happened there. But I think engagement with the community, having the tools is really, and not being afraid to pivot.
You know what about beforehand when you make a change, then but being honest and just trying to say that we'll make mistakes. All our best laid plans, you know, can always be the right just by turn a phrase that doesn't mean something in a certain language. That's where it gets very difficult. Is that it suits English or it suits American English, but then when you bring it into the Portuguese or something like that, it may not suit. So you have to make sure there's not going to be all those things. You're brave enough to step back. You have to. Yeah.
So, anyone from the audience ready to first, or we wrapped up there? Yeah.
So, yeah. So have you done these things
within your information, I always struggle with this. What do you feel like? How do you decide to choose it? Because the lack of big it's simply how we present it.
I suppose I would think about how important is that task for that piece of content is it a on the critical path? Is it a primary task? Is it anybody who logs into your app will probably be going down that, or is it more secondary? And that would help me see the priority of it. And I'd also think of how big the change is. If it's, we're changing the word X to Y, then, don't really need to shout about it. But if it's a big change, then they do. I would always try to have as much content in the product as possible, or as much, I won't say much content, so I don't want buying as much detail succinctly, because people won't go and click the learn course, so I would always err on that side. I think about if there's other features or changes and other tooltips. We had a situation there where it was Pendo overload, and like what are other teams doing with their onboarding, with their Pendo or their Hotjar? Is our customer through their journey getting so many of these pop-ups? And team A has a new thing and team B has a new thing, so kind of looking at the big picture as well, and seeing where does your fit, and then how if it needs to be, if it deserves like in your face kind of pattern, or can we do something?
I think we see a lot of trust. Like things, it's like your data, like you're pulling in place for your shit. Your data is encrypted. Then we actually have people who are like, what encryption do you use? It's like, I don't want to put like that kind of detail in the post that's necessary for percentage users, but you also may have more details. This is specifically like where we store and how we store. That's always like how much of that can be put into like head off those people versus not using the majority of those.
What Mark has been right. What Mark has been really attentive. Like I sometimes can be verbose like that. I'm trying to take it together as I can, give the message. Then Mark will look at it and say, well, actually, you can simplify it. So it's actually looking at the content as well, to your point.
Now, one really good exercise to do is, when you do have the guides, is it a button with the tooltip? Really good exercise to do, just visionary, is to, do your flow with all the guides, and then take all the guides away and redesign the UI just to see what it would look like if you didn't have any guides, and then you can kind of see what you do need and what you don't need. And like, do you need a little tooltip, little icon? Do you need a little button? You just add in a little bit of copy.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much for all the six of you that turned up in person. We're amazed and delighted to have you all here. I will tell July 19th, come again. There'll be free beer, free pizza. You need to come. We'll have speakers, and we will be in person again on the screen. Thank you very much, and we really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.